Hey, on this episode of the Juicebox Heroes, we've got Garrett Greene with the Sugarland Space Cowboys talking some minor league baseball, y'all. Let's go. Hey, thank everyone for tuning in on this Sunday evening of the offseason, another offseason episode of the Juicebox Heroes podcast. I'm one of your hosts, PK. As always, we got the Dubon Fan Club president, Chris Moreno. Sweet Me Bones Bryles is in the house. And tonight, fellas, we've got a very special guest. He is Garrett Greene with the Sugarland Space Cowboys. He is the media relations director and the TV play-by-play. Garrett, thanks for coming on tonight, man. We really appreciate it. How you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. It's just about that point in the off season where I've caught up on sleep and gotten to relax and spend some time at home. World Series is over. Still keeping up with some winter ball, but the itch is starting to come back to have some baseball. We're still a long ways away from it, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's, we're trying to do these episodes, twice a week, and we're watching the World Series because we had Springer in there. I think for the three of us, we were all pulling for him to to get another ring and be another Dodgers killer. But now it's that slow time, not a lot of movement, right? You're getting a little bit of injury updates from the big squad. And then we've gotten a little bit into, potential off-season trades or, who's going to play X position. So yeah, it's, I'm ready for some action, man. I mean, those winter meetings are coming up here soon, right? So, that should start kicking things off. So we're ready to talk some baseball, man. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, man, I'm super excited. I mean, pretty much the last few years, like I've really dug into the Space Cowboys. I know we must have went in 2024, probably about 15, 16 games. I mean, so seeing that team overcame what it overcame and then win the championship, I mean, like I really think that for a lot of other people, that kind of put them on the map. And then, of course, with all the injuries that went down this season, I think a lot of Astros fans who might not have known became a lot more familiar with these guys that we had coming up from Sugarland. And, for a good portion of the season, I know for us here at the Juicebox Heroes, we were like, if it wasn't for the Sugarland Space Cowboys, the Astros don't contend for a division. I mean, so I'm super excited
100%.
to have Garrett here. And, Browse, I mean, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Yeah, and Garrett, I want to say a big thank you for the media day that we were able to get out there and go check out the Space Cowboys and everything that went in with that. Because, one of the things that Chris mentioned that I totally agree with is we saw probably more minor league guys on the big league squad this year than we've seen in a very long time. And I know that was injury related. Some of it was not. Some of these guys were just promoted, which was fantastic. But anyway, we had a great time, and I do really want to hear your insight on what we've got coming up this season for AAA and what we've got going. So PK, I'll let you kick it off, buddy.
Yeah, no. So, we've all touched on it, right? The amount of players that were called up from Sugarland. I guess one of my first questions is, when you have the championship season, the season before, right? And you're going into 25, obviously you're not expecting as many injuries as the big club had, right? And having to basically supply the players, right? It's, how does that, from a fan perspective of the team, right? When you're expecting maybe not so much as a what's it called, repeat, right? But when you have so much turnover with that AAA squad, right? Like, how many moving parts? I'm assuming there's so many moving parts of the guys going up, coming back down, guys from AA coming up, back down. I mean, how chaotic is that process?
It's just kind of life at AAA, to be completely honest. We did have a lot more movement than there were spurts this year where we had a lot more movement than you normally expect. Remember, though, at the start of 2024, whenever Hunter Brown had like an ERA over 8, and you had Luis Garcia got injured, or Garcia was already out, but Christian Javier got injured, and you didn't know what was going on. We had a span in 2024 at the beginning in April where the Space Cowboys made 28 roster moves in 10 days. And now we had some spurts like that, and it was early in the season, and that things kind of settled down a little bit in 2024. So we had a little bit more stability than we did this past season. But that's just part of the gig. And at the end of the day, it's the same way, I think, at every level of the minor leagues, where whenever you have a player that is performing well, if you're not in the major leagues, you're just counting the days until you're probably going to lose that player. Because if someone's lighting it up at AAA, you know, the old saying is like, you can hit your way to the next level, and certainly you can pitch your way to the next level as well. If there's someone who's just putting up numbers, putting together good stats, and in some cases really contributing to your team, you know it's probably just a matter of time until you're going to lose them to the big league club. And while it's tough, because, you know, that can certainly cost you wins and losses at AAA, and don't get me wrong, as much fun as winning the title and winning 93 games and having a championship season in Sugarland was, like, the ultimate goal is for these guys to contribute to the Astros and help them win a World Series. That's what the whole minor league system is there for. And so I did appreciate throughout the course of this season that you heard people saying, like, yeah, it's the Space Cowboys who are going out there. But I heard a lot of people say it like it was a bad thing. And it's a case where you say, look, you're pulling out of your AAA squad, which is what it is there for. And then you are winning games at the major league level with those players, even if they're not the guys that you expect. And even if maybe it's not sustainable long-term, like you might want it to be, that's what it's there for. That's what the players are there to provide for you, is so if you have an injury, Zach Short can come up. And you know what? Like, Zach hit really well his couple of times up in the big leagues, delivered some home runs, delivered a walk-off that he had. But you know, you can pull a guy up who's going to be a well above average defender, who's going to help you out with your run prevention unit as well. So it's a case where you know that you're probably going to lose players up to the big league level. And every time that you lose one, it stings, because you're like, man, there goes our cleanup hitter out of the middle of the lineup. Or, you know, we had a case where late on in the season, Colton Gordon was going to start a game for us. I saw him out on the berm in right field in Round Rock getting ready, and it was about 2 hours before first pitch. And then about an hour before first pitch, I get a text message that says, hey, bullpen game, Matt Bowman is starting instead, and Gordon's going up to the big leagues to throw in Atlanta tomorrow. Those are just, and you just say, well, all right, next one up, survive in advance. We just move along, because you know that you were there to provide the big league team. But it is chaotic. We made, I think it was like 240 some odd roster moves this season, all things considered, in a 150 game schedule. And we weren't even the worst one in the Pacific Coast League. We have amongst all the media relations managers, every year we they used to have a physical trophy. I think it got lost in the 2020 season. But we literally all get in an email chain and all say how many roster moves each of us made, and we award a winner. And I think Round Rock made over 300 roster moves this season.
Oh my God.
Which I mean, that's easy math. That's about two a game if you're doing that. But we had a day this year that they made cuts after the draft. We made 10 roster moves in one day this season. So it's just kind of par for the course. But it was a shock going from AA, where your roster is a lot more stable because those guys are coming up through the minor leagues and they maybe want to give them a little bit more time in a spot than if you are at AAA. Because I think in AA we averaged about 90 to 100 roster moves this season. So you're more than doubling that when you get up to the AAA level.
Nice. I'm glad you brought up the Dodger killer, Zach Short. You know, yeah. I'm so glad you brought it up.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, Chris, what do you got? I know this is so, like, Garrett. Look, Chris is our minor league connoisseur, right? Aficionado.
Heck yeah,
right? Yeah, he's our go-to guy. So I know he's got a lot.
Yeah, I mean, so I got a couple questions, and I'll just ask one because I'm sure everybody wants to get their question in. Coming from, you just said that the Space Cowboys' main goal is to, hey, let's get the players ready so that when they get the call up, they can they can contribute to the Astros and, again, hopefully help them win the World Series. Was the expectation going into this season, coming off a championship season, was there a little bit of, hey, we have the team? I mean, that team in 24, I mean, that team was crazy. Like, I mean, you had like seven guys in that lineup with 20 plus home runs. Or is your approach, is the team's approach still, hey, let's get these guys ready for when they make that call, they can contribute at the MLB level?
I mean, this is what I love about Mickey Story, who's our manager, is that Mickey wants to win every day. He believes in development. I want to make that very clear. It's not a case where he says, forget development, like we're just here, but he wants to win every single game, and he's trying to win every single game that we play. So heading into the season, first blush, you felt pretty good about what we were going to be able to do in Sugarland, because you figure, okay, we were going to have probably AJ Bluebaugh, maybe Ryan Gusto, Colton Gordon at the front end of your rotation. We figured we were going to have Miguel Uyola stepping into a legitimate fourth spot, and then we'd be able to fill out that fifth spot in the rotation. The question was always going to be the bullpen, because that's what really stood out in that 2024 season, is that it manifested in the AAA championship game in 2024. Gordon got 3 innings, and then it was Nick Hernandez for the 4th, Ray Gaither, who got released this year but had like a sub-3 ERA in AAA. He won the June Player of the Month for the Astros at the upper minors this season for what he was doing. But he had the 5th, Logan Van Wy had the 6th, Forrest Whitley had the 7th, Luis Contreras had the 8th, and Wander Suero had the 9th, and that didn't even include Rafael Montero, who was in our bullpen at the end of last season. But you figured that, I mean, Suero obviously goes on to go pitch in the Atlanta system, and he pitches for the Mets this year, so you lose that. We knew that Whitley wasn't going to be with us because he obviously was going to be out of options, and we figured he was going to be contributing at the major league level. Brian King was a guy that was a big piece of our bullpen in the first half. We knew he was going to be up with the Astros. I don't know if I had him being the 7th inning guy. I had him being a leverage reliever, but I think he showed how he stepped into that role. Caleb Ort contributed in a big way as well for us whenever he was there in 2024. So we knew that figuring out the bullpen pieces was going to be interesting. And then from a lineup perspective, putting it together again, no Pedro Leon kind of hurt us this season, actually. Like, I don't think that people understand how good of a year Pedro Leon had in 2024 and how he just got completely derailed by injuries. And I think that there's a reason that of all the guys that the Astros put on waivers at the 40-man deadline, there's a reason that Leon's the guy that got picked up by the Orioles, which I'm very happy for him. Like, he still has 2 more option years left as well. They didn't use an option this season because he was never activated off the IL. He was on the 60-day IL all season. So not having him hurt us. So you go into the season thinking like, well, we've got some pieces and, we think we're going to be in a good spot. And, to Sugarland's credit, they were right there. Very end of May, we had a game that got rained out on Memorial Day. So that was about 3 weeks left in the season. We're playing Las Vegas, who was in first place. And if we would have won that game, which we'd won 3 out of 5 against them that week, if we won that game, we're 1 game back with like 2 or 3 weeks left to go in the first half. But then at that point, Shea Whitcomb goes up, Jacob Melton goes up, a couple of other bullpen guys, a couple of starters go up. Colton Gordon had just gone up. So that's where it manifested that, we didn't quite have, Brandon Walter goes up. He had been big for us in the month of May as well. So that's where, the pull of the big league team kind of, I hate to say the phrase like torpedoed our chances to repeat, but I also figured AJ Bluebaugh doesn't need to be here the whole year. Like, Shea Whitcomb doesn't need to be here the whole year. If Leon had been healthy, I think he would have gotten a shot at the big league. So you're thinking you have a chance to maybe repeat, but if all the guys who were big contributors for you the previous year put up big seasons again, then they're absolutely not going to stay at AAA.
It's wild. It's wild to hear all those names. Like I'm just sitting back, just listening to you. I'm just hearing all those names that you're throwing out from the 24 campaign, and it's like, all those guys played on this team like this year, right?
Yeah.
And like contributed. I mean, it's I get it, that's its job, but like, I'll be perfectly honest with you, up until this podcast, really, I really didn't pay much attention, to the minors, right? It's always just, for me personally, was just more just major league squad. But, you know, in doing this now, you know, we have someone like Chris who you know, really enjoys the minor leagues as well as the big squad. And so, you know, we talk about it, you know, fairly often. Then to have someone like you on here, it's just really cool to hear, you know, just like, again, you hear all those names of those players that were huge factors for, you know, Sugarland to win that PCL championship in 24, but then the following season, those guys made contributions to the big league squad. You know, like Brian King was perfect example, right? I never heard of the guy until this year, and he's our 7th inning guy, right? And like for me, it's coming out of nowhere, but for guys like you know, and other listeners, right, that have, you know, a little bit of following with the Sugarland squad, they, you know who he is. And so the Pedro Leon, Chris is a big proponent of Pedro Leon. Like we talked about it a lot, especially coming into spring this year, where like this was his time to, you know, to make a move, right? Because he had been putting up good numbers down in AAA. And you're perfectly right. I mean, it was the injuries. The injuries always kept him down. And it's sad. I mean, we talked about it last week that Baltimore picked him up, right? So I hope that he can stay healthy over there and fulfill the, you know, the path that he's supposed to be on. I hate to see him go, right? Because you know he's been down there for a minute, but just the injuries, man. Like it's hard to overcome those injuries.
Well, and I also think that, you know, unfortunately, like he kind of becomes redundant. The Astros don't need another right-handed bat in their lineup. They're looking for left-handed bats. And then there's always a new wave of guys that are coming up underneath you. And especially now, something that I don't think people think about as much either is with the reorganization of the minors after the 2020 season that got canceled. You know, minor league rosters lost the ability to hold on to like 35 extra guys. So typically you might have been able to say, well, let's, you know what, let's give Leon one more season and let's see what it can ultimately do for us. But you have your next wave of draft picks that come in and you have to find space in your organization for those guys. And so they're just casualties that come. I understand why the Astros did it. I'm with you guys. I'm certainly rooting for them in Baltimore because the thing that I don't think enough people knew about Pedro, probably because language is a little bit of a barrier with him being from Cuba and primarily speaking English, is just how good of a guy Pedro was. He was incredibly well liked in the clubhouse, very, very thoughtful, very considerate, a real caring guy, always just had a good attitude as well, and an incredibly hard worker. But I completely understand what the Astros rationale is. It's like, hey, we've had him since 2021. He made it to AAA in his first season, and we kind of need to clear up some space and move along at this point.
Yeah, agreed. Roz, you got anything, bud?
Yeah, so you've brought up a ton of names I think that most Astros fans now are really familiar with. So, and we've got a lot to shake out between now and the beginning of the season next year. But is there anybody that Astros fans should particularly keep their eye on, or anybody that you think we might be seeing in an Astros uniform coming up here at the beginning of the season, possibly being a standout in spring training or anything like that?
Yeah, I think that, the easy answer would have been Zach Cole, but he obviously got up and made his presence known at the very end of the season. I think that Jacob Melton is going to surprise some people next year. Obviously, he got derailed by injuries this season. He had the back injury that he came into spring with. Looked like he re-aggravated it at the end of spring training, so that's why he was kind of in and out of Sugarland's lineup at the start of the year. He has the ankle injury that hobbled him at the major league level as well. And I haven't talked to guys about this to get exact confirmation for it. But when players come back from injuries, I don't think that it is always that they are 100% healthy. I think it is just that they're at a point where they're not going to re-aggravate whatever an injury they might have, and they can play through whatever injury they're dealing with at that point. So if Melton comes into spring training healthy next year, I know that maybe his numbers weren't where people wanted to be this season. I think we'll see that improve at the plate. But obviously his defense, his speed, the ability to steal bases. Joe Espada, I think, has already mentioned they think he's really going to contribute this season and help out in a big way. I don't think it's any secret. The deadline to add guys to the 40-man roster is coming up here by Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so 4 p.m. Central Time. I think that Miguel Ullola is absolutely going to be on that list of guys that the Astros added their 40-man. I don't know how many more they're going to look to add. I'm not even a big enough nerd to have gone through and see what eligibility guys are. It's the off season. Like, I'll find out whenever it happens. And I'm a sicko who also does love the Rule 5 draft, so I will watch the Rule 5 draft, including the minor league phase. But, I think that he generated waves this season, and if someone was going to ask me about him, I'm just going to give you my bit on Miguel Ullola at this point, because he obviously had a shoulder injury that he suffered in the spring breakout game in spring. So he didn't join Sugarland officially until like that second week of April, and then he had to build out. And then he had an incredible month of May, and that included some really good pitching performances at altitude. And then he had a decent June, and then a little bit of a tough July. And then he had a very short outing in relief when we had that whole round of 4 major league rehabbers who were with us. So all of our starters were throwing as piggybackers at that point. And he had an outing where he didn't get out of an inning in his first inning of work at home. And after that, he made a change to his delivery. So he had originally been a full windup guy where his feet were straight to the mound, shoulder width apart, and his glove in front of his face, down to the belt, full windup, come home. Well, then if he had a guy get on base, he had to throw out of the stretch. And for the stretch, he was set up a little bit more conventionally, feet kind of facing towards third base. And that's where you could see him get a little erratic and a little wild. But then if he got a runner around to third and there was no chance for a runner to steal on him, right back to the full windup. And then he'd get out of most jams that he was in. He altered his windup in a start that he made in Iowa at the end of August. And he went from having that full straight on to a hybrid setup for his full windup, where he had his feet about 45 degrees between third and home. And so I think that what that did, and what I've talked to different people in analytics and mentality and things like that, is that what you're trying to do is narrow the gap for your variation that you have. And I think that narrowing of the variation between what his full windup was and what his stretch was helped him really hone in. And if you look at that, he had 3 straight outings where he went 6 innings. He turned in quality starts in 3 straight outings, and he really finished the season in a good way. And I think he hit a really good stride down the stretch. He showed that he could throw as a 1-inning reliever the last week of the season for us. So I think that he took that last step that he needed to take at AAA the last month and a half of the season, last about month of the season. And so I don't think there's any doubt the Astros are going to add him to their 40-man roster. And I'd be surprised if he broke camp with the Astros, because I don't think they're going to be in a spot where they're going to need a starter, where they're going to need that bullpen arm. I think that they're going to have enough, but I think he'll be the first guy that they'll pull from AAA if they need him. And he's obviously, that's not a secret. That's not this guy's kind of off the radar. Like, I think it's pretty well known that that's the guy who's going to be the next one up if they need somebody.
Chris, you got something, Chris?
Yeah, man. So with all the guys coming up from the Space Cowboys up to the Astros, we did get to see some guys come up from AA up to AAA. You're looking at guys like Miguel Palma. I know he was kind of hurt off and on. But the guy that I was most excited to see, that was Ethan Petco. So can you kind of give our listeners a brief breakdown of Ethan Petco?
Yeah, you've hit on that's great. You've hit exactly on the next guy. And Petco, I gave up, I think, 5 runs in his first outing that he had with Sugarland. But after that, he really impressed me. I think he had the best stuff of any starters that we had at the end of the regular season. His fastball sat a little bit higher in terms of velocity. He sat like 95 to 96, had some really good secondary pitches. The only thing for him is just going to be stretching out and not being a guy who just throws 5 innings, which he did late on in the season. But from a raw stuff perspective, Ethan Petco just really impressed me. He had a good changeup that he threw. His slider is really good as well. And just, I also think that we saw a little bit of the maturation for him and kind of that want to, because there was an instance where he got into a jam. I think it was, he was at 5 1/3 innings, which is already a career high for him. at Constellation Field, and he had runners at second and third. And Mickey Story, because he's a former major league pitcher, he'll do this every now and then where he'll come out and make the mound visit. And it's not to go to the bullpen, it's to come out and talk to his starting pitcher. He did it a lot with Ryan Gusto, especially whenever he went on his great run at the back half of 2024. He's done it with Blue Ball. He's done it with Gordo. Like, he did it with Hunter Brown whenever he was here. And Pecco made it very clear he wanted to keep the ball, and he got out of the jam, and he got through 6 innings. I think he only gave up 1 run or whatever it might have been. It was one of the best outings of his career. And we said it on the air at the time, like, that's development, like pushing yourself into the 6th inning, somewhere you haven't been. You're at 85, 90 pitches, but still wanting to keep the ball. That is development. And I think that showed a lot of something that's more than just what you're going to read on a scouting report for a guy. I think he needs to continue to stretch out a little bit, but from a stuff perspective, he's the guy that I walked away with probably the most impressed from like a raw stuff perspective at the end of the season from a starter perspective.
Yeah, that's, that, like I said, that's one of the guys that we've talked about, as, potential futures, right? I mean, throughout the season.
Yeah, I feel like he's a lock to be a non-roster invitee to spring training. I feel like that's a pretty easy one to pencil in.
Nice. No, and like we know, like the Astros always seem to have these pitchers down, in their system that, either literally come out of nowhere, right? And just, let's look at Brandon Walter for like 2 minutes. That guy. I mean, that guy saved this rotation for several games. I mean, same with Colton Gordon, right? Blue Ball, when he came back up after going down, right? He ends up being this lockdown, long relief guy, right? To the point that we think, we've talked about it, for potential, at least competing for that number 5 spot potentially, right? Just because of what he did after getting shelled in his first outing, to go back down, to come back up, and it seemed like he was throwing a little bit faster, a little bit harder when he came back up, and then he was just nails. We got a few more minutes. Let's go ahead. One more thing for him.
All right, this is going to be pretty short, I would imagine. You were talking about Mickey Story being unconventional, how, he's going to the mound on that first visit to, your starting pitcher before he gets pulled or anything like that, just to have a break. I got to go to a number of the Space Cowboys games this last season, and the one thing I noticed, he was coaching third.
Yeah.
So why?
Dude, welcome to the minor leagues. Welcome to the minor leagues. That's the way it is.
I was like, at AAA, why don't we have a third base coach? And instead, our managers out there at third, waving the guys in. So,
I won't take too long because I realize I've gone way too long on some of these answers. I've talked to Mickey about that. It's kind of a 3-pronged thing. First of all, in the minors, there are plenty of managers who they still are the third base coach. So that is just kind of a norm. I think that like John Russell, who has been a major league manager and is the manager in Tacoma, and he's 70 something. Like, you're not going to see him over at third base. But it is still a norm in the minors. 2, I know that Mickey likes doing that still, because you see a lot of times that the next step up for minor league managers is to go up and be a base coach at the major leagues. So that is still practice. I saw Tommy Watkins, whenever he was the AA manager for Chattanooga, he goes up and turns into the third base coach for the Minnesota Twins. So it keeps him in practice for that, if they're going to ultimately do that. And then the last thing is, and Mickey said this to me one time, because I asked him the same question about it. He said, he goes, you know what? If I send a guy, there's not someone walking back from third base that I'm having an argument with about why'd you send that guy. I did it. I'm the one who knew what I wanted to happen. So there's it's questioning the manager. It's not a question of why'd the third base coach do it. What'd you tell your third base coach? Like, I'm the one who did it. So I know that that's a piece of it. So it's kind of a 3-part answer for that.
It's still pretty cool. I mean, to have your manager down there at third. I mean, and I didn't really think of it in the sense of them getting, if they were to go up to the Astros, that they'd be a base coach. Like, I really didn't, put that into play. But that's some pretty good new knowledge.
It's all development, every single
Yeah.
spot in the minor leagues. We're all just trying to get better at everything we can to get a chance.
That's right. That's all you need is that chance.
Yeah, I just
right?
remember. I remember Browse asking me. He's like, "Is that Mickey Story at third base?" I'm like, "Hey, man, he's a manager. I guess he can do whatever he wants to do. I guess it is."
Better
So.
believe it. Better believe it.
Yeah.
Hey, Garrett, before we get out of here, man, tell me what's going on. Oh, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one quick question, man. How did it feel to get the call up? I mean,
Yes,
I would assume
yeah.
that for you, that was probably one of the best feelings ever. And did you get a jersey? Did they give you a jersey?
No. Come on, no, man, because it's not about me. It's not about me, and that's I felt so overwhelmed by all the outpour and support that I got, and the well wishes and the text messages and the social media messages and everything like that. Like, it was incredible. But at the end of the day, like, it's not there to be about me. It's about the players. It's about what's happening. I'm just a vessel. I'm just there to pass along what is happening and have everybody who can't be there get a chance to experience it, or the people who are there that still want to stick us in their ear and listen. Like, we're just there to provide context and additional information and tell the story of what's happening on the field. So no, like, there was no jersey for me or anything like that. I got enough fanfare, and I appreciate everything the Space Cowboys did to hype it up for me as well. But no, it was a dream come true. I mean, it's like my first job. I quit my full-time job in radio in Austin to go make amount redacted amount of money to go work for 5 months for the then independent St. Paul Saints and I got to do 25 home games. I got to do middle three for 25 home games. So from a play-by-play perspective, I got to do a little more than 75 innings for the year. Now I call 75 innings in like 2 weeks in the minor leagues, if even that. And then the next job after that, I was in Helena, Montana. I was in rookie ball. I was riding a bus all around Montana. I was living in an apartment I shared with 2 other people. I was working in a stadium that was built in 1932. I was calling games in front of 75 to 150 people on Sundays in Helena. Like, our announced attendance was like 350 people. Awesome. I spent 5 years in AA. You get to come up to AAA. Like, you just never know. And it's 10 years, over 1,000 games worth of experience. And it's like the players, there are guys who they never make it. They grind in the minors for years and they never make it. And there are announcers that never get a chance. So to even get to go up for a day was just an absolute dream and a revelation. To get 3 games was more than I ever could have imagined. And it was just, the big thing was it went so fast. And I can't say enough about how incredible it was.
No, big congratulations, man. That's just a really cool story. I mean, like, where you especially up in Montana, right?
Oh, it's beautiful country. I loved every second of it, but there aren't many cities in Montana that are particularly close to each other.
Right. Well, look, man, before we get out of here, why don't you tell everyone what's going on at Constellation Field upcoming?
Yeah, this is one of the great things that we have in Sugarland is that we don't shut the gate on closing day and not open it again until our season opens. We have Sugarland Holiday Lights coming up. It's our 12th annual. It's presented by Houston Methodist. It starts this coming Friday, is going to be the first day, and it is open every single night. Yes, Thanksgiving. Yes, Black Friday. Yes, Cyber Monday. Yes, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, all the way through January 4th. We are open every single night. They actually, the day after our season ends is when they start putting lights up in the ballpark. So it's been almost 2 months worth of setup. It's 3.5 million lights, I think, is our estimate that we have now. So every piece of the ballpark is transformed into a winter wonderland. There's a coordinated light show that happens about every half hour. We have like fire pits to do s'mores on out in center field whenever it cools off a little bit. There's vendors. There's a 9-hole mini golf course this year that's included with the charge of your ticket. We have an ice skating rink. Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but we have an ice skating rink that's on the infield. So you can go down onto the field and ice skate at Constellation Field. And it's very affordable, so I can't recommend it enough. Sugarland Holiday Lights. It's if you're like, how am I going to get in the Christmas spirit, or what I need to do, come on down and spend a night at Constellation Field, because you will not regret it. It is a great experience for sure.
And where can people go to get tickets?
SugarlandHolidayLights.com. Nice and easy. Or if you if you can't remember that for some reason, just type in like Space Cowboys, our website. I think there's a panel that's like right smack dab front and center that's going to direct you where you need to go for that. But yeah, SugarlandHolidayLights.com. We have nights for teachers, first responders. You can bring your dog. We do, we have like 3 different movie nights that we're doing. There's always something going on for it's minor league baseball for a light show. It's incredible.
No, that's awesome, man. We're looking forward to it. I think we're going to be there on Thursday night. I think we will be there on Thursday night for the preview. But man, Garrett, I want to really say thank you for coming on, man. It has been like an awesome episode. I hope you come back and do it again with us soon. Maybe we get after spring, getting close to the beginning of next season. But thank you again for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
You got it, guys. I'll leave you with one more note here, because I had to look this up. I agree with you about AJ Blueball. And I know people are going to ask about durability. AJ's thrown 223 2/3 innings in the minor leagues the last 2 seasons combined. He threw 124 in 2024, and he threw 99 this last season. I think the time is now to let him loose and show what he can do. And I know that AJ told me after he got his first major league win, he flew cross country to come from Miami back to Sacramento, where we were playing the River Cats. And when I was talking to him about his experience, he said, man, I'm just scratching the surface. Like I feel like I'm just starting to figure out what I can really do. And I think Astros fans should be really excited about that. But thank you guys for having me. It's been a blast.
Absolutely, man. Guys, you say anything before we get out of here?
No, man. Like I said, I'm like a kid on Christmas morning already. Just deep diving more into the Space Cowboys and minor leagues. Like I said, hey, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with us, and you are always welcome. Just let me know when you want to book it, and we'll book it.
You got it, guys.
Well, sweet. This is going to be the end of this episode. I think we're probably going to be off on Thursday. I would assume, since we have plans, but for sure we'll be back on Sunday. Another episode for the off season. Until we get out of here, I hope you guys have a great rest of your Sunday evening. Have a fantastic week. Until then, I'm PK. That's Chris. That's Bryles. And thanks again, Garrett, for joining us. This is the Juice Box Heroes. Good deal.